Hey guys, I am really excited about this episode. We are in episode 5 of a playlist about a Harmony Monterey that started off life in such condition that the only thing redeeming to me was the herringbone binding it had on the top. Cracks, all kinds of stuff, and you can go up there right about now or wait until the end of the video, so when this episode ends you'll see a couple of boxes you can click on and you will see an entire playlist. But what's happening today is we still have the back of the guitar off. Now, we've done a lot of structural work, binding work, and the funny thing about this is they used the kerfing, this part here, sometimes they call this a lining in another type of instrument or even some guitars, but it's what you glue the back onto. And in this model they designed it so you glued the kerfing to stick up past the sides or the spurs, and so when you glued the back on you would seal this up with binding. So I've done a lot of work, and I think what I'm most proud of is I decided that we were just going to leave the finish the way it is, whatever it is, and I started French polishing this thing, and if you look at it, all of the scars are there, but this thing is awesome and it's going to be that way. So what we are going to do today is we're going to wire this thing up. Now I got one of these pickups that mounts to a pick guard here. It'll actually flip around this way. And because I don't know that I'm going to put a pick guard on it, if it is, it's probably going to be a 1961 Mississippi license plate. But I'm going to sand a spot down right here, and you can see that there's an area there that's offset, and I'm going to set this, glue this on with hide glue, drill one hole right here, and this will mount here. And in the event I want to take this off in the future, all I got to do is heat up the hide glue in the piece of wood and pull it off. But all the screws and everything will mount to that piece of wood. Now, I want you to think about something. I don't push people's products. The people that I mention, you can look down below, and I'm going to give you a set of links down below today. But I did a little Instagram feed the other day about safety and CPR and using a defibrillator, and then I got into some things that we do in our shop because we never think about what we're doing on a bell sander, how a piece of metal can come in our eye, or what we're breathing. So today, as part of this episode, somebody got a hold of me and sent me this thing, and it's called a Fume Extractor. Now, you can hear above me right now, there's a helicopter going over because there's been fires out here, unimaginable fires. And in fact, I am getting this episode done today because I need to load it up tomorrow. I have not had electricity at the Acton Cultural Capital of the World shop or the Malibu Cultural Capital of the World shop. So I'm going to take advantage of, while I have electricity, I'm not running a generator, and I'll deal with those helicopters flying over as background noise because the helicopters and the big jet fixed wing stuff dropping retardant is what shut everything down, trust me. So, what do you think it's like breathing smoke? Well, I was out in Montana when Mount St. Helens went off, and I didn't even know it went off, and it appeared to be snow and dirt. I'll tell you about that another time, but the air quality up here is terrible. So you start coughing, and then you start thinking, you know, how often do I subject myself to breathing stuff I shouldn't be breathing? Say lead, for example. Well, this is a soldering iron. And what this does, I'm going to unwrap it while we're working. And we're going to set this up. And what it does is it pulls the fumes away from you. I'm not sure what else it might work for, but it's got charcoal filters, and we'll go over that. And we're going to get this. I've already got the pilot holes drilled at the bottom there for the tone and volume pot. And I am going to use my little chart here. Guys, I want to tell you something. When you're putting on pickups or you're building the body of a guitar, and you got one pickup, you got two pickups, you got three pickups, you got all these different things. Guys, get in the habit of taking the time to draw out what the wiring configuration looks like for whatever kind of guitar you're building. For example, this arch top is going to have steel strings. It's going to have a trapeze tailpiece. It's going to have a bridge. The strings need to be grounded. So on this, you'll see right here, it has the strings. It has a depiction of a tailpiece, and it shows a grounding wire coming off and coming up here. And this is all color coded. If you take the time to do this and put it in a sheet protector and put it in your library of references up there, I should show you guys at some point all of this, but you'll always have this. You open it up, you page to it, you look at the guitar that you're wiring, and you just set this up, put it on a clip on your toolbox on your bench, and watch what's going on. So enough said. Watch for this and this product, and we'll make a decision. You send me something, it's either good or bad. I'm going to tell you what it does. I'm going to show you what it does. So that said, let's get to the bench and get this thing wired up where it's going to sound like something. I don't know what, but something. Okay guys, first things first. We've got a beanbag. The back of this guitar is still off, and we've got a couple of these Mr. Power neck stands. They look like this. They're made out of cork. They're pretty handy. I've got one there, and I've got another one right there that I can set this up on, and the kerfing rides it. Next, I've got this, okay? So let's go over how we're going to wire up this guitar. There's a pickup here. It has a wire that's hot and a ground wire that comes out. Typically, those are together inside of a sheath, and the ground wire has different fragments or windings in it, like a cable that you take apart, like a choker in the oil field. And you got to kind of figure out, is this wire going to be long enough? See, there it is on the end. You can see those two wires. The silver one has solder on it. That's the ground. This is a hot wire. Now, if I put those up here, is this going to be long enough to reach over here where my first potentiometer is going to be? I want you to notice that I have two holes marked because I've done a lot of French polishing here. So when I use the step bit, I am not going to just punch through and have a bunch of fragments. Isn't that shiny or what? Anyway, so the first thing is, are we going to need extra wire? But let me go through this quick. This is one pickup, tone and volume. So you got your pickup up here. Your potentiometers, if you've never looked at one, that's okay. There was a time when I looked at one for the first time as well. Let me get one out of here. I could have been better prepared, but this is a potentiometer. It's turned upside down. This is the part that will come up where your knob goes on, but turned upside down here, there's three lugs. The first lug in this picture is going to go to the hot wire coming off of your pickup. Then there's another one of these over here. It's got three lugs as well. Okay, you're going to jump a wire once you've attached to there to the middle lug here. You see this? to the tone, the second one. So, hot wire. This one gets attached to the input. Input has hot. The input where you plug your cable in so you can hear this thing on your amp is going to go there. Then the third one gets bent back over and grounds back into here. So hot lead, hot from pickup, ground, and then there will be a spot up here. We're going to put all these wires that you see green go into there, and we're going to jump one of the grounds to the bottom of the second or tone pot. Now in the tone pot, again, we will have a wire that jumps from the first lug that comes from the pickup. That will jump onto the middle lug of the tone pot, and then a tone pot has a capacitor that offers some resistance that allows you to vary the tone, and that gets attached to here and grounded. This pot has absolutely nothing on the first lug. You see that? Let me see if I can get this straight. Do a screenshot of that, if you'd like. Okay, now, before we start wiring, I want to show you this product. I've cut the tape on it. It says Fume Extractor. It's kind of heavy. Open the box. I'm not always the best at pronouncing anything, but I want you to see this. It's Noevsbig. Noevsbig is the brand name. And it appears from this little flyer that they have a bunch of different things that we might like these clamps and helpers and things like that. I'm going to give you a link down below. I don't get any commission off of this or anything, but somebody sent me a nice email and they said enough stuff that they know what I do and thought, well, you might think this is pretty cool. So in this picture, you'll see that somebody's soldering something that looks like this, a soldering iron. And what this thing is doing is it's sucking the smoke into this machine. I'm interested in what happens when the smoke comes in, because I've survived a lot of things. You know that I'm oil field trash. What else? So I've been through a lot of dangerous stuff, but I don't think that breathing solder is a good thing. So let's get this set up here. I try to make this interesting for you all. Anyway, the first thing we've got is we've got 3 pads. One side is a little bit, the texture is different. This side is smoother. Anyway, there's 3 of these, and I think they're replacement pads. Okay. We'll put that over here. And there's already 1 pad in this contraption itself. Okay. This thing's pretty heavy. Now, there's the name again. Noevsbig, Noevsbig. And this is here. It has a plug-in, and it has a switch in here, like a Christmas tree switch. That's pretty handy. Anyway, let me get this set up by where I'm going to solder. Okay, we're going to put it right over there. And then we're going to take the cord. I got a pull down reel from the top overhead here, this bench. Oh, I don't know if you ever saw this, but there's a router right over here that I can just raise up. I've got a couple different routers, but that one is right there. So we're going to put this, we know the work is going to be right here. And so let me plug this in. Okay, it is plugged in. And you know what? Look at this. It's pretty powerful. I don't know how long it would run before it heats up or something, but remember, there's a pad right here, and I'm assuming that that is a charcoal filter. Okay? So what we're going to do is I'm going to get a piece of something here, and we're going to get the solder rolling, and we're going to figure out when we're soldering what this thing is going to do. Okay, I clicked this thing off. I like this switch right here. Rather than having it be on the body, it's kind of cool that it's over here like a floor switch. I have speed controls like sewing machine pedals for my different scroll saws and stuff like that, and routers, so I can control the speed. But before we get going with this, we know that if you're going to do soldering, you need to make sure that your tip is clean, and that involves using a file. So I've got this round one here, and I just go along and get everything off of it. This comes to a fine point. You can see that. See that? Okay. And then I want a wet sponge, because between every connection I make, I'm going to dip it on that sponge. See that? And you see all that smoke that's coming up? I'm wondering how this thing, and I can smell the smoke. So I think we're not talking about, I did a little bit about MSDS sheets and LD50 numbers and some of these chemicals and stuff that come off this, like lead and that kind of stuff. I think it's the amount you need to be bad for you is pretty low, but you can see some of that steam, some isn't. So we're going to put that in there. And then let me get set up here, and I'm going to put the spots where we're going to ground everything on the back of these potentiometers. Okay guys, I want to show you how I keep Chick Flick Teal in business with this paint now. But I have different holes in here, so I know if I want to put, say, for example, a Chick Flick Teal screw in something, I know from drilling a hole in here which bit it will fit in. So when I'm doing a project that involves a lot of different drill bits, which, by the way, let me show you that. I have this little thing here that has all my Forstner bits that I use for nickels, and just about everything is in here. And I have step bits, and there's color coding and who knows what. But anyway, so the different things I have, there are holes in this piece of wood. So, for example, this hole right here will hold a pod, and it holds it snug. And what do you know, since they're fairly close, and one's for tone and one's for volume, I can put these here like so. Now, what I don't want to do is I don't want to get these confused. So I can take a Sharpie or a magic marker, like we call them, and I can put V here and T here. That way I will not be confused. Now, we know from our chart that we're going to need to ground some things here, and we're going to have to bend the third lug here over against the body and solder that to there. So there's no time better than right now, and I am going to cut the camera for a minute so you don't have to hear the sound, and turn this off, or on, excuse me. And what you're going to do is you're going to watch as I start to put solder where I need it to be. Where the fumes go, are they going to go in here or are they not going to go in here? And in fact, I think I'll zoom the camera in a little. Okay, what I'm going to do, guys, is I am going to put this piece of paper here, okay, and I'm going to put it on a tether that I have with an alligator clip up here, and we're going to leave this like so. And when I start soldering, you're going to want to watch, is there smoke coming out of here? Is it just passing it through, or is it actually capturing it right there? So I'm going to shut the volume or the camera down here right now and restart it so we can save some editing time where you don't have to listen to the sound of this thing running, but I want you to pay attention to what's happening to the smoke that comes off of here, goes into here, whether it's being pulled in with what force, and then watch back here. What's coming out is I'm going to put solder on the tip, and we're going to watch what happens to it. You can see it smoking already here. But while I'm doing it, I'm going to turn this thing on. So let's try that. Let's get some solder on here. And you see it's drifting all over the place. See, I'm way back here now and it's still pulling it in. Okay, the fan went off and now it's just kind of going wherever it wants to. I think this thing gets an A+. All right, let's get some wiring going on here. Okay, so first things first, we need holes in this body here that will accept these potentiometers, and we're going to make sure that we flip it over as needed so we don't blow out the back. You don't need to hear this noise. Okay, now I'm going to get in the love pencil from the Wink can, and I'm going to lay this up here. You want to make sure that your pickup is not off to one side or the other, that it's equidistant, because the strings ride the edges, and if you get this over a little bit, that magnet won't pick it up. So measure it. It's got a place, it's got this little film covering on it. When it's new, you keep that on there and you kind of mark with millimeters as to where it's going to be, and then you mark this corner right here where that wire is going to go down into it. Once again, you don't need to hear the noise. All right, now that we have that hole in there, we can just feed this wire through, and we'll take care of that piece of wood I'm talking about later. We'll feed this like so, and then get that where it sits nice and flat, and then we'll take a piece of our tape here. Get that to seat where it needs to. There we go. And if you look on the back, there's our wire, and that wire will reach down to that potentiometer with plenty of slack. Okay, I've got this overhead cam on now, and I want you to pay attention that I have marked the volume pot with a V and the tone pot. You don't want to get those messed up and mixed up, and I really don't want to be soldering right here around here. So I can take this guitar out of the way as long as I know that this here gets translated to this. So volume, tone, and I can move the guitar now, and when it comes time, I can just actually hook this up, the pickup leads last when they're in the guitar. Before I move the guitar, remember, we're going to need a grounding wire that comes through here somewhere that can go to the trapeze. So I am going to drill a hole right in this area. I'm going to use a different trapeze. I'm not going to use the one that has the flat-headed screws. I'm going to do the one that has the triangular thing. And then I can think about what kind of strap button I want to put on. But I am going to drill a hole right in the middle here to run a ground wire through. And that means that while I have the back off here, it's going to be really easy to wire this thing, including putting that hole through for the grounding wire. You'll see the bit come through here in a second. Now I have a countersink tool, and wherever I come through, I don't want splinters out or anything, so there we go. Got a little countersink on there. Now it's time to talk to you about wire. Okay, I have what's called pushback wire. It's pre-tinned. I have 3 different colors, and the reason that they call it pushback wire is because you can take the end of it and push it back like so, and it's inside of a covering, and then at the end, if you've pushed it back and you want to push it right back up to cover up the connection, you're good. Or you can use Tammy actually used to help me cut these. I have these different shrink wraps in the same colors that I can use. You don't want to spill this, but you'll see me using this pushback wire and then shrink wrap over the top of all my connections, because you don't want anything to come apart. Close this every time or you'll wish you had. So what you're going to see me do now is I am going to use black for hot, except I will use yellow sometimes if the ground is a different something or other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this yellow wire, and it's going to be the one that grounds my strings. So I'm going to pull it through, and then I'm going to need to know that it will go to here, and then I can cut this, and this is the only time I will use yellow wire, and that is to ground the strings. So next, there's a couple things I'm going to do here. Like, I'm going to put this up here after I move the guitar. I'm also going to have to decide that I am going to put the input jack, which I need to find for you. I like using these. I don't like those flat input jacks that sit on the side of the guitar and have a washer and a nut, and they come undone, and then they spin around, and the next thing you don't, they don't work. I like these. They're called pin end jacks because you can put a strap on it. I don't use that for that, but you'll see me come in down here. Where am I? Yeah, right over here, coming through like this, okay? I will put a reinforcing piece of metal over here, which gives me an opportunity to use something odd, but this will come through here. So I'm going to use, it takes a hot wire and a ground wire. So I'm going to use black for ground in this case, and I'm going to have to come about like so, and then I'll take a piece of white wire, and we'll put those two together, and I'm going to give myself plenty of slack, and we will come in to right there. I'm going to twist those up, and now you'll see me run a hole through here for the jack like this. Okay, so that said, we've got the wires that we need. We're going to leave this one with us here. We can always feed this through in the end. There it is, you see that. So every wire that we're going to need, except the leads coming from the pickup itself, will be attached outside of the guitar. So let's get where we can see here. Oh, you need a couple of these zip ties that are small. See that? Okay, so we're going to get our fan set up, and we're going to have our chart over here that we can look at. So I'm not going to bore you with all this, but what's going to happen is we've taken the ground wire that's going to go from the tail piece, which goes to the strings, and we're going to attach that to the grounding system that's going to jump between here and here. You're going to see on the volume pickup the hot wire that comes from the pickup go to this, and the ground wire goes to here. This middle lug on the volume is going to have the hot lead coming off of the input jack. So it's my experience that there are two heights. One of these is shorter, one is taller. The shorter one is the hot wire. The taller one is the ground wire. Remember, we're going to put this on, where is it? After we get all this in the guitar, and we'll make those connections outside of the guitar on the input jack. But once again, hot lead pickup, hot lead input jack, everything else will be grounded. Now we need to run a jumper from the hot lead on the jack, on the pickup, which is the first one here, and we are going to attach that to the center lug on the tone pot. That is what gives us the ability to vary our tone. And then I need to find it here. I don't want to lose it. This capacitor right here has two leads. One will go to here on the tone pot, and the other one will ground up here. So, I want to tell you something. If you are soldering these capacitors, they will burn up. So while I'm putting this one here and here, while I'm soldering, what will happen is the heat will run up the wire and burn this up. So you need to put what's called a heat sink. So you put this on here and you put this one on here, and when the heat hits those alligator clips, it will dissipate through the wire and not burn up your capacitor. So I'm going to go to work here, and I will get all this wired up and then tell you what it is. I almost forgot. Chick Flick Teal scissors, shrink wrap. I am going to make sure that before I solder things, I am going to put anything that goes to a lug, I'm going to put one of these and slide it back far enough so when I solder this onto here, remember this is coming in off of the input jack, I touch the solder here like so. Once everything cools off and not before, then I can slide this up like so, and the lugs never touch each other. Again, making electrical repairs inside of an arch top is a nightmare that causes the need for a crazy person. Okay, I wanted to talk to you about this one more time. This is the capacitor, and there are your heat shrinks. You don't want to let this wire run straight up there without some protection. So get this on here quickly and just let it go. It's just that quick. Don't burn up your capacitors. Okay, so let's run through this quick. We got the capacitor on the tone pot, third lug, everything's soldered, nothing's burned up. We got a jumper going from the tone pot to the hot wire coming off of the pickup. We have the center lug going off to the input jack wires, including a ground, which is grounded there. We've got a jumper ground between the pot and the tone. We are missing the ground from the pickup and the hot wire from the pickup. And we also need to ground that wire that's going to the trapeze to ground the string. So I'm going to put a piece of yellow shrink wrap. You can't get like that. Like I said, you keep it away. Then I am just going to twist these together like so. I am going to take, always use your sponge to clean that. Look at that. It is pulling the smoke from the sponge right in. Do you see that? This thing works great. Nothing's coming out the back. Do you see that? That's great. Then I'm just going to take this and we are going to let it heat up because I left it on the sponge so long. But We just solder those wires together. Leave them sit for a second. Don't move them right away because you'll break everything loose. Then I just flip this over like this, put the heat shrink here. Let me show you a little trick. I take my pea soup Anderson's Buellton, California culture capital of the world, avoid the striker, and use my fancy striker. There we go. Now we're going to take this contraption. We know which one is tone. We know which one is volume. We know that this lead right here needs to be placed in the right spot once we get the other hot wire from the pickup, which is going to be 2 wires come the same one. So I'm going to replace this shrink wrap with a slightly bigger one there that will take 2, okay, and we'll get that back over to here, bend it, and we pick all of this up and get our guitar over here, and we'll drop these in just like this. Okay guys, I want to tell you something quick here. These washers are awesome because they keep everything in place and everything won't spin around. So again, we want to make sure that we know which one is our volume, which one is our tone. Our tone is pretty easy to spot because it has the tone capacitor on it. I could have been a little bit more prepared. But the star washer is a great thing. It keeps everything from spinning, like I said. Those jumper wires and everything are just the right distance apart here. And we can keep all this stuff hid from the F-hole. We can put a little piece of wire right there if we need to. Then we just go to the other side and flip these in with the wires. Remember that this goes to the input jack, which we will route that while we're in here, like so. And you're going to see that once I get everything together, I'm going to take that little zip tie and put all of this together, and then remember this one goes through to the outside like so. Ground to the strings, trapeze, hookups to the input jack. Everything is hooked up here. Clean, one owner. Okay guys, what do you think? Well, let's get to business first. What do you think about this thing? To be truthful with you, I think the thing is solid. I think that nobody's trying to nickel and dime you. I think it comes with 3 extra filters. I didn't see anything coming out of the back. It was pulling steam and it was pulling smoke in. And the more I think about it, the more I think that there's additional uses for this. It's not a replacement for a mask when you're spraying guitars and stuff, but if you're using finishes and lac polishing and doing drop fill with lacquer and stuff, I don't see this thing hurting anything. It gets everything away from you. It appeared to trap anything that was a solid or suspended in the smoke coming off of the soldering iron. So I'm going to give it this. Like I said, this is new to me. I don't no, I'm happy I have this. So I'm going to give you links below where you can get this, and I think there's other products that are kind of like this thing. Anyway, check it out. Buy it if you will. Buy it if you won't. I know one thing. I got less lead and something in my lungs tonight because of that. I always want to remind you guys, it is so easy to get sidetracked and mess up with your wiring. And you know what? If I hold this up long enough, I think that it might pick this for the scene shot if the robot is smart, right? Anyway, write down the wiring connections, put it in a sheet protector, and put it up with your technical information and your catalogs. I'm a mess, but there's certain stuff I want to know where it's at. Now, when you look inside of here, you got a pretty much a clean one owner. I have to put this on yet and this on yet, but until I get the finish done and everything glued on, I am going to leave those alone. But I'm happy with this. I'm going to show you how to mount this pickup when it comes time to put the binding on, but that's it for this time. I'm going to put this episode in the playlist up there so you can get one of these things and fix just about anything that goes with it. If something on this channel interests you, it might even be this resonator sitting back here that somebody did something to and tore it up. It might be anything you see in the background. If something catches your fancy, I didn't really say that, it's on the script. I didn't want to say that. But if you see something, send me an email. I appreciate your emails. I've been getting a lot of emails from people who have similar type guitars and they're happy. Look at that finish. I cannot believe it. It's ratty. It's missing a bunch of stuff. It's got big scrapes on it, but regardless, that finish is awesome. So next time we're going to get this thing back together. You're going to see how to line up everything without affecting the neck angle. Because remember, whenever you've got the back off and you glue the back on, whatever you do with this thing this way, look at it moving, will affect the neck angle. So, give me a like and a subscribe. And I will see you the next time if you're goofy enough to keep watching me.